Your Excellency, Ambassador Uras, Consul Mr. Mehmet Ekizoğlu, distinguished speakers, dear participants, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Elif Gönençer, and as one of the Deputy Secretary Generals of the Turkish Capital Markets Association, I'm very much delighted and excited to be the moderator of today's event titled Capital Market Opportunities in Turkey. So on behalf of the Turkish Capital Markets Association, it gives me great honor to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Although we are on two different and distant continents of 7 hours of difference, thanks to the technological developments, we're able to come together with our Canadian fellows in the first webinar co-organized with the Canada Turkish Business Council. This event aims to give our potential Canadian investors an opportunity to get an expert insight into the Turkish economic settings and capital markets framework regarding its regulations and implementations, as well as services and instruments. In this light, we also expect to foster a fruitful exchange and even closer cooperation with our Canadian friends. We will start with a brief introduction and opening remarks, and then we will have short sessions of 10 to 15 minutes on various topics, followed by an interactive Q&A part, where you will have the opportunity to actively participate and directly ask your questions to our expert speakers. Please note that this event will be recorded and this link will be available on the internet. And during the presentations, note that everybody except for the speakers will be muted. Now, before I have the pleasure to give the floor to our chairman, Mr. Tevfik Eraslan, let me introduce him briefly. Mr. Eraslan is the chairman of the Turkish Capital Markets Association. He also serves as the CEO of İşİSET Management, and among others, he's also the chairman of Luxembourg-based Turkish Fund, a board member of Turkish Institutional Investment Managers Association, a member of the Turkey, Luxembourg, and Turkey-Sweden Business Councils of the Foreign Economic Relations Board, as well as board member of Borsa Istanbul, which is the stock exchange of Turkey. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours, please.
Elif Hanım, çok teşekkür ederim. Thank you very much for nice introduction. Your Excellency, honorable visitors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good afternoon. On behalf of Turkish Capital Market Association, I would like to warmly welcome you all to this important and very first webinar co-organized with the Canadian Turkish Business Council. This event aims to highlight the advantages and opportunities of investing in Turkish capital markets. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to His Excellency.
But that's going to be likely till June. So if selling some still should be the plan, and especially if we want to look at diversifying into a couple of the ones that always.
Hurşit Bey, may I continue?
Please.
Okay. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks His Excellency Mr. Çevrim Uras, the Ambassador of Turkey to Canada, and Mr. Mehmet Ekizoğlu, the Commercial Consul of Turkey in Toronto, for their kind initiative for the organization of this event. And Mr. Badar Shamim, the Board Director of the Canadian Turkish Business Council, and Mr. Mike Ward, the Executive Director of the Canadian Turkish Business Council, for their kind collaboration organizing this event. I am happy to announce that following today's webinar, there will be a consecutive one in June with a focus on the Canadian capital markets. I hope we can foster the Turkish-Canadian business relation with further events like these in the future. Dear guests, please allow me to give you a brief overview about our association. As a public professional organization regulated under the capital market law, our association currently represents 215 capital market institutions consisting of banks, securities firms, asset management companies, and investment trusts. Our association which celebrates its 20th anniversary this year, has the objective to contribute to the development of capital market activities of our members, and is hence taking on an active role in capital market ecosystem. Within this objective, we establish professional rules and regulations, organize congresses and training courses, conduct research activities, and cooperate with domestic and foreign institutions and organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, with its unique strategic geopolitical location and being a member of OECD, NATO, and being a candidate country for EU membership, Turkey is one of the important regional powers. Due to its dynamic and fast-growing economy, it is competitive and skilled labor force, and its young population, Turkey secured its place among the 20 largest economies in the world. It is no secret that Turkey has an ambition to become an important business hub, with Istanbul as a developing international financial center, offering numerous opportunities to international investors. Turkey has been ranked 33rd among the 190 economies by the World Bank regarding the ease of doing business. Its investor-friendly regulation facilitating foreign portfolio investment with no restriction on trading in the Turkish capital markets contribute to a positive investment climate. Also, Turkey has the presidential reform agenda for more investor-friendly regulations. For this purpose, the government has already published implementation timetable of this reform program. Dear guests, I am sure this event will create a bridge between Turkish and Canadian capital markets. I would like to underline that the companies listed on the Istanbul Stock Exchange in terms of measurable metrics are much more attractive compared to the stock markets of many other developed and emerging countries. I am sure our esteemed panelists in today's webinar will give much more comprehensive information on this subject. Dear guests, despite the extraordinary circumstances of the ongoing pandemic, all Turkish capital market institutions have been able to adjust rapidly to the new normal by developing new solutions to continue supporting the Turkish economy and generating value for those who invest in Turkish markets. In this context, our association is proud to assume a leading role in presenting capital markets opportunities for Canadian investors. I hope today's event will be valuable for the audience and that it will encourage you to benefit from the potentials offered by the Turkish capital markets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I have the pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Mike Ward, who is the Executive Director of Canada-Turkey Business Council. He is an international private sector consultant and a former Canadian diplomat, who has also headed the Canadian Consulate General in Istanbul when it opened in 2010. So he's very familiar with Turkey and Turkey-Canada business issues. Mike, it's a pleasure to hand over to you.
Thank you, I'm delighted to be representing the Canada-Turkey Business Council, or CTBC, at this event. Just to give you a brief word about the CTBC, we were established 20 years ago to promote stronger commercial ties between Canada and Turkey. We've accomplished quite a bit, we think, during that time, particularly through our long-standing partnership with the Turkey-Canada Business Council at the Foreign Economic Relations Board of Turkey, or DAEC. And Nurdan Hanım, I introduced her earlier before the call formally started. She's on this call. We've worked closely with DAEC, for example, in promoting the establishment of a Canada-Turkey Joint Economic Committee, or JETCO, which the two governments eventually announced in 2019. There's no question the JETCO will serve as a major catalyst to drive increased trade and investment between Canada and Turkey, including in capital markets. And in that regard, I would like to thank the Turkish Capital Markets Association, both for creating an excellent program for today's webinar and for recruiting such first-class speakers. This initiative represents a big step in Canada-Turkey commercial relations because despite the size and dynamism of our two economies, you just heard how big the Turkish economy is and how much potential there is in it, there has never been a Turkish capital markets event involving both Turkey and Canada. This is the first, and it won't be the last, as you heard from the previous speaker. So, and in fact, if CTBC board member Badr Shannon from Generation PMCA Corporation has his way, we will have follow-up events on a regular basis, perhaps as often as 3 or 4 times per year. Badr is a key driver of the event. Both he and I truly believe that there is tremendous potential on the capital markets fronts in both countries. As I said at the outset, the Canada-Turkey Business Council is delighted to be involved in this webinar. We are very optimistic that it will generate new synergies for years to come. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. Now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce you now His Excellency Ambassador Uras for his opening remarks. Ambassador Uras is the ambassador of Turkey to Canada since 2017. Prior to his appointment, he served as foreign advisor to the Prime Minister of Turkey and as a member of the Foreign Policy Advisory Board at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. During his long diplomatic career, he was also ambassador to Greece and to Israel. Mr. Ambassador, it's an honor for us to have you here for your opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hoş geldiniz. Bienvenue. Welcome to you all. I'd like to extend a special thanks to Canada-Turkey Business Council and the Turkish Capital Market Association for organizing this event. I too hope it will continue. Given our objective to raise awareness in Canada of opportunities in Turkey, I'm happy to see that there is a good selection of key Canadian organizations and also from Turkey. Looking at the general picture, the Turkish economy, like all economies integrated with the global economic system, has faced major challenges during the COVID pandemic. On the other hand, the Turkish economy also showed resilience and as of the end of 2020 has been one of the few countries which recorded positive economic growth. This trend is also estimated to continue with soaring growth around the rate of 5-6% in 2021. And we are mindful of the fact that the pandemic and the risk it is still posing on the world economy are not over yet. In this respect, our government launched Turkey's latest economic reform package on March 12th, with the aim of maintaining price stability, increasing employment, investment, as well as supporting the financial sector. During the course of this reform package, new financial solutions were brought forward and innovative working models were established to quickly adapt the Turkish economy to the new normal. It is this overall macroeconomic picture the stock markets come to the forefront with the vital role they play in the functioning of the market economies as providers of capital. Indeed, they are essential for the growth of business and the wider economy. The development of capital markets is also one of the critical areas to boost the potential of the Turkish economy. The major requirement in this context is a strong, liquid, and attractive capital exchange. As Turkey's sole exchange entity, Borsa Istanbul has established itself both as an engine for the Turkish economy as an international financial hub. Turkey's domestic market, with a vibrant population of over 85 million people, represents a huge potential for investors from all over the world. Borsa Istanbul also emerges as a unique financial center in a strategic location bridging Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. As our government aims to place Turkey among the 10 largest economies in the world, it attaches importance to the stability of the financial sector and supports Borsa Istanbul to becoming a leading stock exchange in terms of numbers of listed companies and market cap, strengthening our economy and improving the investment environment in Turkey. We call on all investors to explore the vast opportunities in our country. I'm looking forward to listen to our participants, and please bear in mind that our embassy and consulate across Canada are all ready to help you in any way we can. May I also, in concluding, say that you have a standing invitation for a Turkish coffee at our embassy. I wish you all a pleasant meeting. Thank you. Nice to see friends.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As already announced, we will now our expert sessions, starting with an overview of Turkish economy and financial markets by Mr. Serhat Gürleyen, who is the Director of Research and Strategist at İş Investment and is weekly columnist at Dünya Daily, the well-known economic Turkish newspaper. Please, Mr. Gürleyen, the floor is yours.
I try to share screen for my presentation. It will take 10 minutes. Is it on the screen now?
Yes.
We can see, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your invitation. I want to thank to Canada-Turkey Business Council and Turkish Capital Market Association for their kind invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. I will share briefly my view on Turkish economy, and then we'll be open for your question anytime you want through the presentation as well. Anatolia is at a very special, a very unique place between northeast, north-south and east-west trade for centuries. Actually, 2,000 years ago also it was an important place. Now in modern world, in global world, Turkey has become a regional hub where you can reach 1.5 billion people in command of $24 trillion GDP in 4 hours flight. So geography is both a blessing and also a curse for us. But for the moment, I want to talk about the blessing. We are integrated to Europe. If we rescale global map with share of Turkey, with export of Turkey, we see a very different picture. Europe is very large. Middle East is also larger than it is, and partly Central Asia. Asia does not exist. US is much smaller than the current size. Canada does not exist. Sorry about it. But it shows clearly that Europe and Turkey, and actually Turkey is integrated to Europe. By the way, if you draw this chart for Canada, we see a big US, about 75% of Canada export to US. Anyway, integration with Europe provides a unique opportunity for Turkey. It gives us access to advanced technology and also a large economies of scale. And with this large economy scale, Turkey can actually reach 900 million people freely. They have custom unions with EU, free trade agreements with other countries, and also our own domestic market. And totally it is more than 900 million people. It's an advantage to have economies of scale. And over the last 20 years, actually Turkey doubled its market share in both China and world. And believe me, it is not an easy deal when you compete with China all around the world. We are resilient to external shock. Turkish markets are sensitive to external shock. They have to admit it. They have a high beta, but Turkish economy is resilient to shocks. And the last epidemic, COVID-19 shock, proved it one more time. We deal successfully to minimize human and economic loss. And actually, Turkey, one of the few countries next to China with a positive GDP growth in 2020, we see it as success. We are committed to fiscal discipline. Turkey is one of the best examples of expansionary fiscal contraction. we reduce our public sector debt while speeding up our growth. It is not an easy deal. It's a successful example for fiscal discipline. We are a fast player, a very rapid growth player. Over the last 10 years, we are next to China in terms of growth. This picture, this graph, a bit exaggerated. I mean, actually, our rank is 4th to 5th. Because of the pandemic, India, Indonesia, Korea economy were a bit hit. But still, it's a success to improve our rank from 13th to 16th rank over the last 20 years. Of course, we have some deficiency, especially on the inflation side and balance of payment side. Part of Turkey's growth comes from expansionary monetary policy, tight fiscal policy combination, and we also let our currency to depreciate. And as a side effect, we have a high inflation next to Argentina. They are the second highest inflation. Actually, over the last 10 years, most emerging markets economy have been able to decrease their inflation by about 200 bips. We increase our inflation by 800 bips. We are not proud of it, but it's a fact. And on the balance of payments, Turkey is not in harmony with other emerging economies. Most of them actually try to have a current account surplus. Turkey preferred to speed up its growth with external saving. We have a high current account deficit, but frankly, this 2020 figure is a bit exaggerated. Actually, it is smaller because of the pandemic and because of the growth difference between Europe. Our current account deficit seems here much higher than it is actually. In terms of external indebtedness, Turkey is not at a nice place. Our external debt to GDP is about 60%, almost double of EM average. Actually, when we look at total financial debt of non-financial companies and households, and if we put it on a map on the left, Turkey's situation is not too bad. We are a rapidly growing economy and we have still room to finance ourselves, but our FX debt is high and it is actually, its maturity is very short term. And it is not good for Turkey because it increases Turkey's sensitivity to EM risk appetite. And when we compare Turkey with other emerging economies in terms on the basis of current account, growth, inflation, the picture tells us clearly that we have slowed down and we need some kind of external rebalancing. We can do it in a smart way. We don't need hard landing in the economy, but kind of soft landing. We don't need to grow as fast as China. It is beyond our potential, but we have to rebalance our economy externally and we can do it. There are some progress. We are optimistic that this year we will see some improvements in this front. On the opportunity side, through the pandemic, we had a K-type growth in the world where US and China were leaders and Europe was a laggard. This situation changed very rapidly in spring, and we are hopeful that improvement in Europe will on top. Turkey will be a main beneficiary of growth of the recovery in Europe. It will also help us to rebalance our trade relation with Turkey, with Europe, because in 2020, we were on the positive side in terms of growth and Europe was heavily contracting. Because of this, our trade deficit to Europe increased a lot. This year, we expect some normalization on the growth front. It's an opportunity for Turkey. Another opportunity or threat you may decide on it, is Belt and Road Initiative. Ankara is very optimistic about Belt and Road Initiative because so far Turkey trade has been limited to Europe, Middle East, and part of Central Asia, roughly 1 billion or 900 million people. But actually more than 2/3 of world population is on Belt and Road Initiative road. And after the project is completed, good news, Turkey will have access to that part of the world. In the global map, we have seen share of Asia is very small, and Ankara sees it as an opportunity. It is good news for Turkey, but also it is a bad news in a sense, because this 2/3 of world will be able to reach Turkey and its main trading partners, Europe, and we have to be very careful. Some sector will be negatively affected, some positively, but it will be a difficult game. It is not easy to compete with Asia, especially with China, as you all know very well. In terms of asset class, it is heavily depreciated in recent years. In terms of real level, real exchange rate level, this score of Turkey is about 1.7, minus 1.7. It is one of the heavily depreciated currency next to Brazilian real and Peru currency. And also Turkish lira provides an ex-ante real yield about 5%. In a positive global environment, we believe Turkey is well positioned, and Turkish lira is well positioned for short-term carry or for long-term positions. On the equity side, still Turkey is one of the most heavily sold equity market. In a sense, all emerging market economies, all emerging market equities are sold since the start of the year, but Turkey is one of the cheapest. In terms of price earning, it is about less than 6 times. And when you look other examples, they are more than 15. So we should have some improvement in our rank, especially if we can improve our efficiency on the inflation and current account balance. On local bonds, long end of the yield curve, at the long end of the yield curve, Turkey is the second cheapest bond in rate market next to Brazil. And we believe this current high inflation environment cannot continue forever, and Turkey will be able to reduce its inflation in the forthcoming years. On the Eurobond side, we are also positive. We downgrade long end of the yield curve because there was a rally in the long end of the yield curve. But for the short to medium end, we are still positive. Especially we see substantial appetite from local investors. They usually compare it to foreign currency deposit rate, and we don't see any pressure on that side. So we continue to see short to medium end of the Eurobond yield curve positive going forward. So this is basically my presentation on Turkish economy. We expect a smooth improvement on growth, about 4% growth expectation for this year. Our expectation is much lower than most international institutions. On the inflation, we are not positive. On the current account deficit, we see some smooth external rebalancing, not big steps. On the money market, we expect some small rate cut only in the last quarter of the year because we are not positive on the inflation front. On the currency part, our estimate is 8.7 against US dollar. it is a bit optimistic and upside risk to this estimate really exists. Thanks for listening to me, and floor is yours. Elif Hanım.
Thank you, Mr. Gülyan, for this extensive presentation. Now I would like to introduce you to Mr. Alp Erdoğan, who is Executive Vice President of Borsa Istanbul, responsible for business and product development. Mr. Erdoğan, we are very curious to hear from you about Borsa Istanbul markets. The floor is yours.
Elif Hanım, çok teşekkürler. Hello everyone. I extend my warm regards to distinguished participants. First of all, I would like to thank the Canadian Turkish Business Council and the Turkish Capital Markets Association for their efforts in this web and their cooperation and contribution to the recognition of capital markets opportunities in Turkey. Today, I must say that I'm very happy to highlight the potential of investing in Borsa Istanbul this webinar. As we know, Borsa Istanbul is a leading regional hub with around 500 listed companies exceeding $200 billion market cap. 8 years ago, we have brought together stock, derivatives, and gold exchanges operating in the Turkish capital markets under a single group. Currently, there are 4 main markets operating at Borsa Istanbul. Namely, they are equity market, debt securities market, derivatives market, and precious metals and diamond market. With our unique BizTech platform, we offer a broad range of products and global integrated market for Turkish and regional financial assets in capital markets. And also post-trade and depository services are offered by our group companies, Istanbul Settlement and Custody Bank, and the Central Securities Depository, of which my colleagues will give information on these services they provide in detail shortly. As Borsa Istanbul, we are proud of operating a seamless, fast, and reliable platform which leads EMEA peers by far with its cutting-edge technology. Since the first quarter of last year, we have all experienced the negative consequences of the pandemic that directly affected the global financial markets and the real sector. On the other hand, our capital market has shown that it offers unique opportunities and potential for both companies and investors. Global and local monetary expansion accelerated the flow of individual savings to capital markets. So it was much better than we expected previously. Our stock indices reached record highs during the year on the back of heavy demand, primarily from local investors in the context of an unprecedented investment behavior. We have seen record-breaking transaction volumes in all our markets, with the contribution of public offerings, which was extensive, to which our individual investors showed great interest. The number of investors more than doubled during last year and reached 2.7 million. It's a very new and exciting phenomenon for our capital markets. Since we have set our vision as providing a transparent, effective, fair, and innovative trading platform for all our investors, we have seen that it's necessary to raise awareness of investors who invest in the stock market for the first time, because there were a chunk of people who were included in the capital markets first time this year. We broadcast lots of educational and information videos to large audience in order to provide accurate information to investors and raise awareness. Stock exchanges, as we all know, are organized marketplaces. One of the crucial functions of them is serving as marketplaces for intermediating the public offering of companies within the framework of different listing requirements. Stock exchange, which are highly regulated markets, try to minimize investment risks while listing companies for public offerings. However, in recent years, stock exchanges have tended to establish markets for startups to adapt ever-changing landscape. In Turkey, the first step towards funding startups was taken with the crowdfunding regulation enacted in 2019. Within the scope of this regulation, CSD of Turkey, the affiliate of Borsa Istanbul, has created an infrastructure for settlement of the startups' shares. With the help of this brand new infrastructure, we believe that working for funding startups will be much easier going forward. Similar to the global peers, crowdfunding infrastructure in Turkey has been established only for the state startups. However, since there is no market for funding early stage startups in our country, we have planned to establish a platform for funding the early stage startups over the infrastructure of crowdfunding. In this platform, startups will issue their shares via capital increase, and investors will co-invest these shares with a leading investor. In this context, VCs, venture capital investment funds, and trusts, as both leading investor and qualified investor, will be the most important shareholders and stakeholders. We expect domestic and foreign buy-side companies will show interest in this platform, where startups will be accepted pursuant to assessments of investment committee. Our focus has always been to take new steps to improve our capital markets. Last year, we launched the evening session in derivatives market in order to increase the time alignment with foreign markets. Futures contracts are traded between 8 p.m., 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Investors in the United States, Canada, and Europe can access our derivatives markets for a longer time period. In addition, we have opened to trade flexible FX futures that companies and investors choose the expiration date and manage their exchange rate risk efficiently. Last November, we expanded the scope of our swap transactions by opening the precious metal swap market. We restructured the submarkets of the equity market in order to provide convenience to all investors. In addition, the changes we made in trading principles, criteria for transition between markets, and listing conditions were among our important steps to increase the depth in our markets. As part of our long-term gains, we will reach more investors with new products and services we will offer in 2021 and beyond. And lastly, let me share a good news that reached this morning. According to World Federation of Exchange report, in single stock futures category, Borsa Istanbul finished 2020 at first rank, surpassing Korean Kospi Exchange. So we are proud of this development. And in this webinar, I tried to draw attention to what we've been doing in Borsa Istanbul in recent years and its potential in investing. And I wish it to be an insightful webinar. Thank you very much. And back to you, Elfa.
Thank you very much for this nice speech, Mr. Erdoğan. We will hear now about stock brokerage services by Mr. Yılmaz Arısoy. He's a member of the board of auditors of the Turkish Capital Markets Association and Chief Executive Officer and board member of Yapı Kredi Yatırım. Mr. Arısoy, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My screen is showing up, right?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Yılmaz Arısoy from Yapı Kredi Yatırım or Yapı Kredi Invest site. I will talk a little bit about the brokerage services in Turkey and give a background of some of the institutions in the capital markets in Turkey. Here, if you look at the background of the capital markets in Turkey, which dates more than close to 40 years now since the Capital Markets Board established, then we have the Istanbul Stock Exchange established in 1985, and we have the other central agencies established. And in that form, which has also significantly helped to increase the market volumes going forward. If you look at the institutions in Turkey, under our association, Turkish Capital Markets Association, we have the member banks, the brokerage firms, the investment trusts, and asset management companies. And as you heard from Alpagan Bey, the Borsa Istanbul site, and we have at the same time the public companies and other central agencies and companies, including the Settlement and Custody Bank, Takas Bank, and a central registry agency. I will talk about the intermediaries. The brokerage firms and the banks are the major types of intermediaries in Turkey. As brokerage firms, as investment houses, we basically provide the equity trading services to our investors, clients, and also the leveraged FX trading is another important instrument. Then we have the public offerings and asset management and investment consultancy are the main service types that we provide. And on the bank side, there is the fixed income trading and derivatives trading, and also equities linked to equity-linked products for the banks. These are the main types of the instruments, financial instruments that we provide to our investors. If you look at the Turkish capital markets in numbers, basically, as you see, for the last 10 years, for most of the time, these are the lines is showing the number of investors in Turkey, the individual investors. We were around 1 million range, 1.1 million range. But last year, as the pandemic started, and also as we had more people stuck at home, similar to the other outside, similar to the Western markets, we have seen a much higher participation from the individual investor side, and the number of investors increased from 1.2 million to close to 2 million at the end of 2020. And thanks to the IPO activity and other interest from the investors, the current number as around April is around 2.6 million investors. This is a huge growth in the last 2 years, and our purpose is to maintain this healthy increase in the number of investors from our client side in Turkey. Of course, compared to a population of more than 80 million, these numbers are still small. These are the people who trade on Borsa Istanbul, who have equity holdings. So compared to the Western markets, the figures are still, percentage of people trading are still small. But the growth rate, especially in the last year, is quite significant and is promising for us for the future. If you look at the capitalization of the companies in Turkey, in Borsa Istanbul, the figure also increased to 1.8 billion Turkish lira, 1.8 trillion Turkish lira in the last year. But the number of companies traded remained close, almost flat, around 400 companies for the last 5 years. But what we see is recently is we see a more activity in terms of the initial public offerings, and which I will explain a little bit further. This chart shows the foreign and local ownership of the Borsa Istanbul stocks. During time, so in beginning of last year, it was close to 60% range. The red line shows the foreign ownership, and the green one shows the local ownership of the stocks. As part of the macro factors and the general interest, we see a showing percentage in the foreign investment holdings. However, we see a much bigger interest in the local investors. So currently still the 45% of the Borsa Istanbul is owned by foreign investors, foreign registered investors. So it's still a major figure, but we hope to increase this much more thanks to the such initiatives, and also in the future we would like to, we believe, to bring back to the much higher percentage foreign ownership rates of Borsa Istanbul stocks. If you look at here, I'd like to show the total savings. In Turkey, the commercial banking system is still very strong and is still dominant. As you see, biggest portion of the savings are in bank deposits and in fixed income securities. Equities are, here you see the percentages, equities are still only 6% of the total savings of the investors. So this shows us an opportunity to grow further on the equities and capital markets instruments going forward. Compared to, again, foreign markets, we see a much bigger opportunity here. As I mentioned earlier, we are seeing an increased activity in the IPOs recently. So for last year, there were 8 IPOs, initial public offerings of companies. This year already in the first quarter, we have seen 13 IPOs with a total size of 7.7 billion. There were weeks in the past month where we see three major energy companies, for example, being offered to the public in the same week. So we are seeing a quite big increase in this type of activity as well. Hopefully, this will be this will continue, and we will see similar interest going forward from our investors. In terms of the players, we have around 70 intermediary institutions, brokerage institutions in the trading in the operating in the Borsa Istanbul equity markets. Some of these institutions are part of the large commercial banking groups, and some of these institutions are solo players, so they are independent brokerage houses. We see a slightly consolidated distribution, so the top 10 brokerage houses constitute about 64% of the total equity volume. As I mentioned earlier, I mean, the foreign investor percentage has been quite high, also in the past much higher than the current ones. So out of these brokerage institutions, we see they provide basically quite high quality research coverage in English. Basically, most of the reports are written in English, addressed to foreign investors. And also we have corporate institutional sales services to foreign investors. So for those, in fact, we have also some clients from Canada, but we would like to have more in the future. And here you see some of the players in the equity markets and futures markets of Borsa Istanbul as of end of 2020. So for any information needs or other references, please feel free to contact us at the Turkish Capital Markets Association, and we would like to help more to prospective investors thinking about investing in Turkey. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arısoy, for this informative presentation. I'm happy now to introduce you Mr. Selim Yazıcı. He will talk about derivatives brokerage services in Turkey. Mr. Yazıcı is a board member of Turkish Capital Markets Association and is the CEO of TEB Investment, the brokerage joint venture of BNP Paribas in Turkey. Mr. Yazıcı, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Actually, Yılmaz made a very good presentation, so I will be maybe focusing a bit on the differences in the derivatives market in Turkey. Maybe starting a bit with a little bit of a history. It goes back to 2001, and it started under the roof of Borsa Istanbul, but the main development in Turkish derivatives actually was in Izmir through the WOP market. Then it accelerated significantly after 2013 with the merger of both stock exchanges, and of course the BISTEC margin trading system also made a big impact. And in terms of recent developments, I can tell you that we have, after our sessions since January 2020, and unlike unlike cash equity trading, we have after hours in the derivatives market, but of course the volumes are still yet to recover there. Again, comparing both markets, equity trading last year, the total volume was about $900 billion, and in the futures trading, in the futures and options trading, we had a volume of around slightly less than $400 billion. The cash equity part tripled last year in terms of the volumes, but the derivatives part only doubled. But when it comes to declining markets, then it looks like a bit less volatile actually. So the volumes did not really drop as much. Again, another figure that is different from cash equity side is the foreign ownership in volume. It is declining recently in cash equities, but when you look at the derivatives side, actually we are seeing a rising trend. And of course, in that, I think the presence of some international high-frequency traders are making an impact. And again, in terms of who are the main players, I can tell you that in cash equities, it's now more local retail investors. It's on more than 70% in volume. In derivatives markets, we are still seeing that around half of it is coming from retail, and the other half is coming from mainly institutional brokers. So what do we offer as capital markets institutions and brokerage services here in Turkey? I can give you a couple of figures there. We can offer to clients both high touch and low touch services. Borsa Istanbul's technology is, I think, superb in providing services like DMA services to our clients. High frequency trading is an important element, and we can actually offer these services to investors. We can offer arbitrage activities like cross-market activities to investors as local brokers. And we are seeing a rising interest, especially after 2018, in terms of algorithmic trading as well. So these are all possibilities here in Istanbul. Of course, the contracts, when you look at the contracts, they are the major contracts that are trading in the market are mostly index contracts and also single stock futures. And the third in volumes, I think, is FX contracts. I think there's a big opportunity in options market. It's still at an infant stage, I can say, unlike the futures market. But I believe there are a lot of, especially foreign interest in options as well. And I think we will see rising volumes in the options market as well. One little note here, it might be important for Canadian investors. All of our contracts are CFTC approved contracts here in Istanbul. We are seeing also rising interest from local corporates who are using the futures market for hedging their FX positions. But when you look at the retail investors, it's still mainly speculative investments, like it's not for hedging purposes. But when you look at the corporate side, it's mainly carried out for hedging purposes. Just to mention the tax aspect, maybe the withholding tax rate at the moment for foreign investors is 0%. And in theory, we have give up services, but in practice, it's not really applied. And also in terms of research, I think we have significantly improved research services for the underlying assets in Turkey. But when it comes to maybe pure derivatives research, we might have a way to go still. But in terms of underlying assets, I think there is no requirement for further development. Maybe some areas like ESG research and things like this, but the other conventional research, I think, is very well developed here in Istanbul. Yeah, I think when you look at the future a bit, I think we have some improvement areas in products like interest rate derivatives and also commodity derivatives. But on the other hand, I think this market is providing a lot of liquidity at the moment to international investors. And from time to time, the volumes are even comparable to the cash equity side. So I think it will be an important aspect of the Istanbul Finance Center project going forward. And this is all from me for the moment.
Thank you very much for your valuable presentation, Mr. Yazıcı. Now we come to the asset management industry and alternative investment funds presented by Mr. Alim Telci, who is also a board member of our association and the general manager and board member of REPI Asset Management. He's also a part-time lecturer at Yeditepe University. So Mr. Telci, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the Turkish Capital Market Association and Canada Turkey Business Council for their kind invitation to join this webinar as a speaker. Warm greetings to all guests and distinguished speakers. Let me start with some numbers, presenting some numbers regarding the global asset management industry and the Turkish AM sector for comparison purposes. Here, I'm trying to aim that there's a huge potential behind Turkish market. Looking at the global numbers, we have two different sources actually. One is saying that by 2019, the total asset management industry has $110 trillion under management. PwC is saying that. The BCG is saying 90 trillion. So approximately $100 trillion is under control of asset managers globally. And it leads the world's assets under management to GDP ratio to 130%. The mutual funds are approximately $59.2 trillion, making 68% of the total GDP. Pension funds are about $28.4 trillion, which is 37% of the world GDP. Coming to Turkey, we are almost $50 billion. We have almost $50 billion under our management in 2020. The Turkish share in the global sector is only 0.5%. 68% of funds to global GDP ratio is 2.8% in Turkey. And again, it is for the pension fund system, it's again 2.8% in Turkey versus 37% ratio in global terms. Coming to milestones of the asset management industry, there are 5 important steps, basically. The first step was in 2002, the introduction of the private pension system. It was voluntarily based. Why it was important? Because the asset management companies became the only vehicle to manage pension funds, which are founded by pension companies based in Turkey. In 2012, it's the second step, second milestone, a new capital market law came to the picture. With this new legislation, the foundation and management of the mutual funds are left to asset management companies. Prior to its implementation, banks, brokerage houses could able to found and manage those mutual funds. To do so, the asset management companies became the sole owner of the product from its designation to its distribution. The third milestone came in 2013, as a state contribution to pension funds. The government started to directly invest some portion to participants' accounts. Today, approximately $3 billion accumulated in those accounts, making 5.8% of the total assets under management. In 2015, the electronic fund clearing platform was introduced. Investors began to reach mutual funds directly. without using intermediary or any distribution channel. The total transaction amount reached $550 million by 2020 in this platform. And finally, the auto enrollment system, the third pillar of the pension system. Today, it is $1.5 billion additional dollars brought to Turkish asset management industry. It's a picture, as I said before, it's approximately $50 billion right now, our in the industry. 41% of the industry goes to mutual funds, 47% pension funds has a lion's stake, and discretionary is 11.3%. Looking at foreign participation in this industry, foreign direct investment, always it was limited. Only it has reached 8. Here is I repeated 13, but it was the number of companies with foreign ownership in this industry was 8 in 2013. You know, it was the time that we had an investment grade and the interest rates were at all-time lows. So the interest from the foreign participation has always been limited. It can be saying that economic reasons for that. Looking at the asset allocation of pension funds, interestingly, Turkish fund asset allocation differed significantly from the global industry. For example, as an equities, global industry, 45% of the assets, pension assets go to equities. It's only 15% in Turkey. Fixed income securities, of course, it is a lion's share because the risk awareness of the investors. Fixed income securities, especially the government securities, got the lion's stake. There is a peculiar item in Turkish asset allocation, which is FX-based investments. Due to the currency volatility, participants prefer the FX-based investments. The money market investments, which are used as the only balancing ingredient of the portfolios in foreign pension funds, but it is a very important investment asset in Turkey as an 11% stake in the whole investments asset allocation. And the most important difference, as you see in equities, in global pension funds, it came down to 60% to 45% all over the years. And the alternatives went up to over 20% during these years. So radical shift from equities to alternative investments. But we have not witnessed yet in Turkey. So we see that the alternative products has, you know, very, very good potential in Turkey right now. So concentrating on the alternative investment funds, there's a total of $1.9 billion investments. Most of them went to, which is $1.1 billion go to real estate investments. $0.75 billion went to private equity investments, and the industry came to approximately $2 billion of investments right now. There are 25 asset management companies which are currently founding and managing alternative funds. 6 of them only concentrates on the real estate. 10 of them concentrates on private equity investments also, and 9 of them are managing both. There are 49 real estate investment funds and 54 private equity investment funds right now in Turkey. Looking at private equity side, actually there's a growing interest. The total number of investments in private equity companies is 165 right now in 2020. The total amount reached $138 million. Basically, the ecosystem is pandemic-free system, basically. And the legislation in Turkey covers the whole various purposes and strategies that could be pursued by the fund. Venture capital funds that invest in early and development stage companies, or even growth equity funds can invest in later stage or pre-IPO companies, which is becoming very fashionable in Turkey. So there are various purposes can be implemented in Turkey. Gaming, retail tech, and fintech are leaders in terms of transaction volume, but in terms of number of deals, SaaS led the way, followed by fintech and health tech, and of course, the rise of gaming startups has the largest share and the rapid growth right now in Turkey also. That's all for me right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chadri, for this enlightening presentation. I'm also watching the time, and we have a perfect timing. So I appreciate all the speakers to speak on their given time. Now, Mr. Özkan İlkay Kızıltoprak talk about custody services in his capacity as Executive Vice President of Market Operations at the Central Securities Depository of Turkey. Mr. Kızıltoprak, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Are you seeing me? Because do you hear me right now?
Yes, we hear you very well. Mr.
Okay, thank you very much.
But we can see you.
But your video is not working. We hear, but we don't see you.
I will share. Okay, hold on for a sec. Now I think it's okay. Sorry, right now I'm very sorry for the late participation to the meeting due to the unexpected situation occurred today. So I joined the funeral ceremony, so I'm not in the office. I'm in the car right now. There might be a lot of voices from the outside. Sorry for that. I will try to my best to give much more details about the Turkish custody business process. My part is mainly focusing on the post-trade activities in Turkey. Also, I will try to provide the basic and the important details of the custody businesses. So the first one, the first topic is the custody legal structure I want to talk about a little bit. So the local financial institutions incorporated in Turkey and licensed by the capital market boards offer custody service to the corporate or non-corporate investor for the custody of their financial assets, and the individual and the collective investment scheme for the custody of their portfolio asset. So the capital market law categorizes three main areas. One is for the limited custody services, for custody for brokerage activities, general custody services for other investment institutions, portfolio custody services, custody for portfolio management company. So on the other hand, capital market boards issue licenses carrying organizational, operational, technical requirement for the investment, technical requirement for the investment. So the risk, control, compliance, and related issues are separated from the daily operations controlled by the independent department, which means that, for example, staff deals with the custody-related operations has to be licensed by the Capital Market Board, and the technical requirements were detailed in separate communique issues by the CMB for the local custody. Second part is I'm going to talk about the central depository functions. As you know, CSD main responsibility is to protect the asset of the investors. So CSD is the key player in the custody business in Turkey. MKK, which is called the MKK from now on, is the central security depository of Turkey for all dematerialized securities. MKK was founded in 2001. Dematerialization process was started 2005. The CSD provides depository function for its participants, such as banks, brokerage firms, on beneficial owner basis. MKK keeps the same account open at the different custodian under one registration ID. This is very critical point in order to generate the digital ID details. As per the account owner's permissions, the account can be matched with the different custodian, which means that if you open an account, so based on this account, the account details are stored in the MKK system. So with your permissions, the other custodian or the local banks or any other firm can use this number, this account number under this registration ID. Also, MKK has a connection with Takas Bank for the DVP transactions. Also, we have a connection with the central bank to execute government debt securities operations, which means that we have two different connections. This is very important for the settlement process. We will come to that point later on. So we have an online connection, real-time based connection with this party. Also, we are able to accept SWIFT API and CSV file upload facility provides online integration to its participant. For CSD, for MKK, free transactions are settled, all free transactions are settled at MKK, but the versus payment transactions are settled through the Takas Bank system because the clearing the cash clearing agent is the Takas Bank in Turkey. Let me turn to another page. Okay, the second page. The CSD sends information on the corporate action via SWIFT to custodian. This is another important topic. So if you want to receive any corporate action related informations, all the local custodian and also the MKK is able to send the SWIFT notification to the custodians. Corporate action details are provided by the listed company on the disclosure platform. There is no any interference this platform because this platform is populated, is used by the listed company in order to inform the shareholder for their activities. At the same time, this platform sent all the informations to CSD to make them ready for SWIFT message generation. Also, all the local custodian and the CSD is able to send MT535 message, which is the holdings report, to foreign investor if requested. CSD also, this is a very critical process in Turkey, use electronic general meeting and e-voting services for their participant as well. For this time, the system automatically generates the shareholder meeting related informations to the custodian. The custodian, then the foreign investor receive these notifications and send the instruction to their local custodian in order to able to make their e-voting services during the general meeting. These are all automated by the local custodian as well. Another critical process, segregation of account principle. The local custodian operates the custody business on segregated account structure, which means that they open one master account and then open the related sub-accounts for their beneficial owner basis. This is very important point for the Turkey ones, because also we have a omnibus structure, but we will come that item later on. All the investor should open their account segregated basis on their beneficial owners. Also, MKK rules require investors to open account CSD with the participant and have registry IDs. So the investor cannot open cannot open accounts directly in MKK system. Account holder bear the ownership as the beneficial right owner. Also, all the local custodian has to book all accounts separately in their financials. Investor cash account, other than the segregated account under the securities sub-account or the accounts level, but based on the investor perspective, they can use one account, one cash account, or they can open for the cash account separately for each sub-account as well. But this depends on the customer request as well. The cash and securities of both customer and customers cannot be subject to any third-party claims against the custody, because any third-party claim against the custody is not applicable to the cash and securities of customers or in the customers of the customers. So these are the segregation of account principle. It's applicable in Turkey as well. This is a very critical process in Turkey. Hold on for a sec. Let me. So apart from the omnibus structure, segregated account structure, we have an omnibus account structure as well. But this process, even I explained the segregated account principle before, the omnibus account structure opportunity is available with some restrictions. For example, there is ongoing, for example, foreign CSD are allowed to open omnibus account by becoming a direct member of MKK for holding Turkish government debt securities. Also, there is ongoing discussions with the Capital Markets Board to add new securities type, for example, private bonds, portfolio, and equities. But currently, we have only the Turkish government debt security is available to store under omnibus account as well. Let me turn the page. So this process, account and the client onboarding process, account opening is the pre-settlement process, not related with the CSD, but the local custodian. So the account opening process takes place at the local custodians only. They are responsible for the client onboarding. For example, KYC, sanctions, anti-money laundering checks are the key control for opening account. In case any inconsistencies are identified, the process ends immediately. Also, there are controls set by the local financial crimes investigation board. The local custodian has to perform such controls at their site as well. On the other hand, the account maintenance, such as fee calculations, with messaging delivery, is performed by the custodian, such as trade status notification, account holding reports, corporate action status, and monthly invoice. On the other hand, the obtaining tax IDs is organized by the local custodian. For example, there are many rules on that. For example, for the individual, passport copy needs to be provided to the local custodians, and the tax ID request form to be for foreign investors to be filled by the local custodian as well. On the other hand, for the individual accounts, articles of associations translated in Turkish needs to be provided by the foreign investors to the local custodians. For example, to get 0% tax incentive for the capital gain, certificate of residency should be provided by the foreign investors. Articles of association should be provided by the foreign investors in order to get 0% tax incentive for the capital gain. Also, of course, there are double tax treaties should be checked by the custodian. This is their responsibility. They should be aware of if there is any tax incentive in the double tax treaty agreement as well. So the equity settlement, I am going to talk about the very main process in the equity settlement. All the equity settlement is performed in the book entry form and through the central dematerialized system. The Takas Bank is the clearinghouse and the cash settlement agent for an exchange transaction with dematerialized financial instrument. Takas Bank runs two different DVP systems involving MKK. One is for on exchange net settlements. The other one is a DVP system that covers on exchange gross settlement transactions. So the settlement occurs on the real-time basis and the transaction become irrevocable once the securities and cash are transferred into participant account with MKK and Takas Bank respectively. Of course, T+2 cycle is applicable on the equity settlement and with the near simultaneous net settlement of the securities and cash the transaction are executed in this system as well. Foreign institutional trades within the custodian type participant accounts settle on gross settlement system, also through free of payment transfer of securities. As I said before, the Takas Bank is the clearing agent for the cash leg of transactions. Another important point, securities lending, borrowing transactions is available to be executed, but all the instruction should be notified within the SWIFT instruction with the code SEC-L, SEC-B transaction related. This is important for the tax purposes as well. Also, the Takas Bank notifies the stock exchange for buy-in or sell-out of the settlement failures on the morning of T+3, which means that T+3, the settlement failures start on T+3. Another important, we have another important item under the equity settlement. For example, pre-matching is available. As I said before, T+2 is the settlement cycle, but when you start sending your instruction to the local custodian and all the other parties and the players is able to try to match their transactions, your transactions in Takas Bank and MKK system as well, which means that you are able to receive the notification, confirmation notification messages from the local custodian. On the other hand, free of payment transactions are automatically pre-matched at MKK, which means that, of course, this transaction is expected to receive from the local investor side as well. Of exchange settlement transactions, it is another important factor in order to notify to the local custodians, because in your instruction, on-off exchange parameters should be available in your instruction. So there is currently there is only separations on the charge of transactions. For example, if you put on exchange transaction in your instructions, which means that minimum 5 Turkish lira is going to be charged to you. But if you put off exchange transactions, the maximum is transaction cost to be 25 Turkish lira per transactions. Another important factor is the turnaround concept. There is no any turnaround concept, which means that in the market, in the sense of the trades being linked to each other, each trade is traded individually. Of course, there are no restriction for investor to buy, sell with the same day value, but there is no any link transactions in the market. The fixed income transactions are settled at the Central Bank of Securities Transaction System. Also, these government debts are dematerialized on 2012. So, if you have a client account holds government debt security, should be stored at MKK. But for the bank's portfolio, all the holdings are safe kept at the Central Bank of system. So in order to ease the process, the MKK have a direct relations with the securities payment system. So it is a little bit complicated process if there is any transaction with the bank's portfolio account or the foreign investor. So, but we will try to our best. So far, we don't have any issues because as you know, the settlement process on fixed income settlement cycle is T+0. So it is very important to make the pre-matching in order to not to fail your transaction as well. Because in the equities, there is an automatic pre-matching process, but in this part, in this fixed income settlement process, there is no any automatic pre-match, but there is a online pre-matching. Pre-matching is done by the phone by the local custodian as well. This is a little bit complicated process in Turkey.
Yes, Mr. Kızıltoprak, can you please summarize also your presentation? We're much way away from our time.
Okay.
If you could summarize them, it would be very, very great.
Sure. Now I'm going to talk about the corporate action. So the corporate actions is able to the corporate action process. So all the listed company provide their company announce company related activities. So these details are captured by the central depository system automatically and provided to the local custodian and intermediary institutions at the time. When they receive these informations, all these such details are provided online basis to the foreign exchange, for the foreign customers as well. So there are many details, but if you have any questions for that one, you can send me any questions anytime. I will be much appreciated to answer all your questions in the future. Not right now, maybe later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this illustrated speech. I'm sure that you're an expert on custody and settlement, so it's hard to summarize all these issues, but thank you very much for your contribution. I think we will also discuss it in the Q&A part, as you said already. Now, last but not least, Mr. Ateş Konca will give us an overview on taxation in Turkey. Mr. Konca is a partner at Ernst & Young Turkey, International Tax and Transaction Services. He teaches undergraduate international tax courses at Marmara University and Birliği University. So, Mr. Konca, I hand you over the floor.
Thank you very much, Elifan. Thank you for, Canada-Turkey Business Council and also Turkish Capital Market Association, and warm regards to all the participants. And it was really very good to hear all about the taxes also from the other participants. Normally I want to make it very short because it is mostly regarding the opportunities, capital market opportunities for the Canadian investors or the ones that they are representing. And then I would like to make sure you feel more comfortable regarding the tax cost, which is very manageable and very promising. And on the other side, while I was I mean, just listening all the participants, I can say from my investment perspective, it's also whetted my appetite to make some investments in my country. Actually, I have to reading about it. I mean, there are a few slides I want to share. I mean, actually, you can see that the corporation tax rate in Turkey, it is increased specifically for this year to 25%, and will be applied as 23 for next fiscal year, calendar year, and then it will be reduced back to 20%. And there is one specific rate which is started to be applied starting from this year. 2 points lower rate will be applied during 5 years of the companies for the ones going to public for the first time, but there is also a kind of ratio 20% to be applied. I mean, this is a corporation tax rate. I don't want to give lots of details regarding the tax, but I can say in Turkey regarding the tax revenues, I mean, it is mostly, there is no such a big balance between direct or indirect taxes, but indirect taxes are much more bigger than, especially when it's compared to the other countries. On the investment side, what can I say regarding to marketable securities? I mean, to make an investment into Turkey, the tax legislation is also following some specific rules and also following the rules of the other legal institutions or the laws, I can say. Because you already heard about it, there is a need to get a kind of potential tax ID to make an investment in Turkey and sometimes to make any transaction in the financial markets. Actually, this number, sometimes it is questioned because it doesn't give any other tax status. It is only for the identification of the investor. It doesn't mean that any foreign investor who is getting this tax ID is liable to pay any taxes, is not creating any taxable presence. It is again only a procedural but must think, and once the investors would like to make the investment, there is also opportunity to have a different tax ID which may give right to benefit from the tax treaties Turkey signed so far or in the future. And for the identification of the ones who can qualify from the treaties, it's really good to check what is the best ID, tax ID to get it without any tax cost to have in Turkey. I mean, within the markets, what we see for the equities, traded equities, there is a very favorable rates, we can say, because it is not exempt from tax, but the rate is stipulated as 0%, which is practically there is no taxation. And this rate is the final tax rate. There is no other declaration or any filing requirements is needed. And regarding this 0%, it's critical. Again, the custodian institutions in Turkey or banks or the brokerage houses are responsible to make the declaration of the investors to keep all the records separately and to at least make the declaration of the basis, but there will be no taxes. And it means that practically it's very easy to manage the situation without having these tax compliance situations. This is also applicable for not only equities, government bonds, treasury bills, stock lending income or manufactured dividends mainly, the income derived in the derivative exchange, and Eurobonds is not taxable. The only critical point at that one, for the equities, dividend income is separated from this 0% because the different tax regime is applied, which brings 15% taxation on the cash dividends. Stock dividends are not taxable, but the cash dividends are subject to 15% tax rate. I mean, there are some treaties which may reduce it. I mean, Turkey has already signed around 90 treaties with the other countries, but some of them are more specific than the others. And depending on the treaty, and within the treaty sometimes, depending on the type of the corporation, sometimes because we see that the funds of the governments, etc., in a very specific position, and then this may be reduced actually. to benefit from this, it's really crucial to provide the certificate of tax residency, and then the issuer would be liable to make the dividend withholding calculation and the payment. And as I mean, you already you know now. I mean, there is a kind of flow mechanism, and the issuers are getting all these informations through within the system, and the custodians, with the information provided with the investors, are giving all these details. It's very critical to identify the investors as the main or the beneficial of the investment, because I mean, you know, if there is a kind of basket with all the amounts, but lots of investors are embedded there, and normally it is not acceptable. It is not the way to go, and then the custodians need to separate all the investors and then looking their tax status, give them the benefits, or just to keep all the details on their own behalf. For the dividend income, I mean, there are some exemptions, of course, because 0% also applicable for marketable securities investment trusts, for example. But this is the main picture I can refer regarding the person other than the individuals. If we look to what happens if it is not in the market, but if there is a direct investment to a company not traded, and then the similar, of course, the corporation tax rate, we know it will be applied. There is no change on the dividend income, but beneficial ownership status is analyzed. And I can say from 2 years period so far, there were lots of investigations made by the inspectors regarding the beneficial ownership status, and they were denying any vehicles in between the main country and the Turkey. Even these vehicles or the intermediary holding companies without any other action, any other operations, or without having any organizational charts, nothing. And then even they get the residence of certificate from the countries they are established, they were criticized. And it is very critical to see the beneficial ownership and to make the direction of the investment in that way to secure the tax benefit position. Regarding the capital gains, actually, these are the effective tax rates, not only for the corporation tax rate, but also there is also remittance tax applied. This is the effective tax rate. If the foreign company, let's say, not coming from a treaty country, or if it is a short holding period, not in the market, but outside of the market, then these are the effective rates. There are some exemptions, of course, or the mechanism to reduce the basis, but these are the rates. However, for the Canadian investors, there is a possibility not to tax the capital gains in Turkey under certain conditions, like holding periods, or depending on the company shares and the company status, if it's not a real estate company, etc. But it's also really a good position not to be taxed. But of course, it makes sense to check the home country status to decide the effective tax rate. These are the main things, and then I can say, I mean, for the investments, once you consider your commercial needs and the decisions and taxation, I can say, especially for this part of the things, it is much more clearer than some other countries, and it is I can say, okay, developing country, but very mature developing country, and then we will be happy to welcoming you and support you on any request that you may have, or for the questions, please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Konca, for your presentation on this very important issue. Now we will have our Q&A part, and I invite you to address your questions to our expert speakers, please. And for your questions and comments, please kindly click the raise hand function at the bottom, the reactions button, and provide your name, your title, your firm if possible, and please kindly indicate to whom you would like to direct your question. I mean, I want to see raising your hands at at the moment, I don't see anybody. Okay, please, Mr. Shamim, have your question.
So thank you for the opportunity. First off, excellent presentations by all speakers today. Thank you for the broad overview of the Turkish markets. I started my career in financial services in Canada some 20 odd years ago. And at that point in time, it was sort of common understanding amongst asset managers, securities firms, capital market participants here in Canada that with aging population and a smaller population over a period of time, it would be beneficial for Canadian investors, institutions, and individuals alike to diversify their investments here at home as well as internationally. I wouldn't mind some comments from our colleagues from the asset management side in Turkey in terms of what the prevalent thinking is at the institutional level as well as at the individual high net worth investor level in terms of diversifying their assets and risks between Turkey and Canada.
Okay, I'm turning to the speakers who would like to comment on his question.
Excuse me, what is the question exactly? I mean, diversifying the Canadian and Turkish, the assets between Canadian and Turkish.
Yeah, the diversification, geographic diversification between Turkish assets and international assets, including Canadian assets.
Actually, I would think about the restructure of the countries. I mean, not only. I mean, being in that geographic, specifically being in that geographic place. I mean, like Turkey, Middle Eastern or European. It's a little bit mixed. It's a mixture. But I would like. I mean, I would say that, of course, the diversification is the must, but geographic diversification is not the must. The important thing is the risk aversiveness or risk welcoming of the investors. Geographic diversification, I believe that, is not very important for the asset managers. But in terms of the asset yields and asset risks, then it should be considered. And of course, diversification is the ABC of this business. Of course, I mean, if you with a well-diversified portfolio, you eliminate some of the risks. But I mean, it doesn't need to be a geographical one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taji. And is there another question?
Just to add on the previous question, I can maybe comment that actually we are seeing a lot of interest from Turkish investors for international assets, and this is happening across the board. It's happening in the asset management business. It's also happening in the securities business on the side as well. A lot of local brokers are offering to their clients opportunities to trade in the international markets. For the moment, we are seeing interest mainly for US technology stocks and US markets and a bit to the European markets. But I'm pretty sure Canadian markets can be a good opportunity if it's well advertised and well promoted here. And also, we're seeing more and more funds being established and approved by CMB, who have mandates of investing to international assets. But again, I think the ideas they are a little bit limited. Ideas are turning around mainly technology and things like this. I think there can be more geographical diversification. I think that might be a good idea for local investors.
Thank you, Mr. Yazıcı. So I'm waiting for another question from the audiences. Let me ask a question then. It will be a general question. How did coronavirus pandemic affect the Turkish capital markets, and what is your expectations for the future? Who would like to answer this question? Very general question. Yes.
From the asset management side, actually, yes. First when it came to the picture, especially we are managing, real estate and private equity funds, and we were afraid of if some people want to exit the funds, and if we find any difficulty in terms of liquidity, but we have not witnessed any, even zero outflow demand or exit demand. So actually, on the other hand, asset managers, due to the, of course, some of the government's incentives, had benefited from this period, and we didn't experience any exit story. At least I am talking about for my company, but of course, I mean, for other type of funds that is related to some governmental regulations, had experienced some exits, but in terms of real estate and private alternative funds, we don't have any.
Let me explain also, maybe from a brokerage sector point of view. As I mentioned in my earlier presentation, as part of the following the pandemic, we've seen an increasing trend in the participation of the individual investors. As people got stuck at home, they were more interested in the capital markets area. So we've seen increased trading activity. This came from an individual investors' point of view. Also, that's why we see quite increase in the valuations. By the way, the same trend also took place in the US, so it's not just unique to Turkish capital markets, but we've seen a similar trend in many global markets as well. Also, the fact that the capital markets, for example, Borsa Istanbul continued its operations continuously through this period, it helped in terms of meeting the demand of the individual clients. From a corporate point of view as well, we've seen some increase in the equity funds and other mutual funds. So their participation also helped into the capital markets. So as I've shown in my presentation earlier, we've seen a huge increase in number of investors from 1 million before the pandemic to 2.5, 2.6 million to the current rates. So that shows a major improvement for ourselves, for the brokerage industry point of view.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arisoy. Mr. Ambassador is raising his hand. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to spice up the discussion a little and make a few comments. I'm not an expert. It was very interesting to listen to the experts and their insight into the matters. But looking at matters where I sit from Ottawa, I see that in a few months, within a couple, 2, maybe 3 months maximum, we are going to, both in Canada and in Turkey, overcome this pandemic. And I think this is going to show a big bounce back. It's going to promote a big bounce back because people have been economically in a difficult situation, in Turkey especially. Here the government support was quite good, but I would say a bit artificial. In Canada, the government was distributing money to everyone, which actually hampered production. I think that will enliven Canada. But in Turkey, there was a lockdown, there was a pandemic, people couldn't open their businesses. And I would say everyone is now in a mood to bounce back. I mean, this is from top to bottom in Turkey, I see. And I think it's a good time to invest, especially now before this happens, because once it does happen, it's going to really pick up. And I would like to encourage people to come and visit Turkey, especially our Canadian guests, and also spread the word. We also now have a new opportunity to do that. Turkish Airlines, as you know, is flying to the West Coast, to Vancouver, directly from Istanbul. So we have a much wider network now. And this has brought Turkey and Canada a step closer, which is a good thing. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Let me give you an information, by the way. I checked it out and I found out that 1.12% of the investors are the Canadian investors, according to the Central Depository accounts. I checked it out and I wish that this number will rise soon. Yes, Mr. Ambassador, do you want to add something? You're still raising your hand. Okay, Mr. Badar, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to actually echo our esteemed ambassador's remarks. I'm going to put aside my hat as a money manager for a second, and I'm going to speak as a local regional chamber member. I'm both a past president and a lifetime member of our regional chamber for the city. We've obviously been tracking the activities of the business community very, very closely. The businesses in Brampton are grateful for the support they have received, both from the provincial government as well as the federal government over the last number of months. Having said that, we are starting to see a bit of a K-style recovery in the underlying sectors. So hospitality sector, services sector, where you see a lot of face-to-face interaction, they're still struggling, and they're very keen in getting going. So tourism, both in Canada and in Turkey, has borne the brunt along with the airlines and the aerospace sector, which play a very important role in Brampton and GTA as well as in Istanbul. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to support our SME sectors within those sectors through a coordinated effort amongst the economic development teams. I think Mike Ward is working on some initiatives. We'll probably be seeing a webinar pretty soon in early June that will promote broader FDI activity between Canada and Turkey, and that hopefully would allow the FDI activity as well as engagement between sectors that are still slow, primarily because of COVID-related lockdown impact, right? And the capital market participants, I think, are well positioned to support that activity in both jurisdictions. We're already seeing some merger and acquisition activity picking up in our city as well as in GTA and in Ontario at large. And I'm seeing, and I'm sure that my colleagues in Turkey are seeing some of that in the private sector, in the private equity space. So if somebody wants to make some comments in terms of the merger and acquisition opportunities they are seeing in and around Istanbul or in Turkey at large, would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Badar. Yes, Mr. Konca, please.
Yeah, I may add a few comments on that one, because I'm also leading the international tax practice, but also involving together with the team regarding the M&A activities. on the tax structuring, the due diligences, from the other perspective, working with all the other teams. And then, I mean, in these days, I can say that there is more appetite of the foreign investors, because it seems maybe because of the pricing, maybe because of the population which is ready to buy more and more, and especially for some products that you cannot change over. I mean, it is not the three main things of the economies. In today's world, there are lots of things you cannot stop it. And then it seems there are more companies are coming. I can say we are fully booked with this till 2 months. And then this shows that there are, I mean, from the various countries, by the way, but the appetite is there, and then market is here. This also shows, from my perspective, that it's increasing, country will get more benefit, and the first comers will get also the main benefits, maybe. Before the other panelists, I just want to say a few words from my experience.
Thank you, Mr. Konca. Yes, is there another question? I can take one last question or comment, because if not, I have to close the session.
I'll make a quick comment if you don't mind.
Yes, yes, please.
Atas Bey brought up the demographics issue, and that's a very interesting topic. In Canada, we've been prepping our asset management sector and our capital market sector in light of our aging demographics. We have a very large segment of the baby boomer population in Canada. In Turkey, it's the quite opposite. And I suspect that as the Turkish policymakers, both at the government level as well as on the asset management side of things, look at the asset allocation and look at planning for large institutions, especially the government-run or large company-run pension plans, there's a significant opportunity for Turkey to develop that sector with support and expertise from the Canadian side. We've been doing this for a very long period of time. You know, our large government-owned pension plans literally manage hundreds of billions of dollars. And even the large privately run pension plans are in the same vicinity. So I think there's a significant opportunity in the next decade, 2 decades, between Canadian subject matter experts and Turkish subject matter experts to compare notes in that arena and do some collaborative work.
Thank you, Badar. I'm also very optimistic. Okay, is there any other question? Doesn't seem so. So thank you for everybody. I mean, if in closing, I would like to express my appreciation to the speakers for their valuable contributions and to our guests for joining this event. I hope you had a productive webinar and gained some insight into the investment framework and opportunities of the Turkish capital markets. Our association and Kanada Turkey Business Council are two organizations that build relationships on every level and are respected voices for business. So if you have any further questions, do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you. Have a good day and have a good evening. Thank you.